For some time, Rejlander had been experimenting with a technique of combination printing, in which several negatives are combined together to produce a single picture. The Wayfarer, an early example of this technique, used 5 separate negatives. The old gentleman, probably taken in the studio. The other 4 photographed outdoors. These were the pile of stones on his right, vegetation on his left, the grassy bank behind the figure, and the country landscape. Unfortunately, the landscape on his left appears to be underexposed and poorly matched to the rest of the composite groups. When Rejlander saw the advertisement for the Manchester Art Treasures exhibition, he already had an idea in mind. After numerous sketches, he produced a full-size drawing measuring 31 by 16 inches, carefully placing figures and objects so that it both reflected artistic composition and made it possible to produce by his skills in combination printing. The large size printing paper required for his image was not readily available, so he used 2 pieces of smaller paper, probably 20 by 16 inches, which could later be joined together by butt mounting onto card. The join between the 2 pieces of paper had to be carefully planned to avoid cutting across figures, especially faces, and if possible, following darker areas which would make retouching easier to hide. Rejlander then used the drawing to produce a template for the 2 images by tracing the outlines of each group to be photographed onto translucent paper. These groups could then be photographed to scale and printed together as a jigsaw. In order to make certain that the photographed groups had the same size and proportion as the drawing, Rejlander would have used calipers to measure the image size on the ground glass screen of the camera. He would then position the camera and tripod at the correct distance so that the camera image fitted the one on the traced template. Groups in the fore and middle ground of the composition would be kept in their correct proportions by varying the position of the camera relative to the models. Because Rejlander's studio was too small to allow the groups in the background to be photographed in the proportion of the sketch, he solved the problem by using a mirror and photographing the reflection. This gave him the smaller images required to fit the template. The mirror image pictures could then be corrected either by arranging the group of models to give a correct image, or by printing the negative plate with emulsion side up. After he had taken all the pictures, he made contact prints from each negative, noting the correct exposure for the print. All of the negatives were then masked to make the contours of the template before printing, as shown here from one of Rejlander's original plates. In the 20th century, darkroom photographers worked vertically, using enlargers and copy stands. But in the mid-19th century, photographers worked horizontally for both printing and copying. Rejlander's printing method would therefore have been horizontal, using either a paraffin or candle darkroom safe light with its correct filter. In order to maintain a constant light output, the wick size must be maintained and the best quality paraffin used. This makes Rejlander's achievement even more remarkable. We made a special printing box to view and position the negative images to show the general principles. Our Safelite box pictured in the darkroom with a template sheet attached so that it can be folded back and forth as required. The first piece of printing paper is located on the box. The first masked plate is placed in the appropriate position. The template is pulled over it and the image is adjusted to cover the selected area. The template is folded back and the rest of the printing paper is protected with light-proof material. Having already noted the exact exposure time needed from the accurate test print, the exposure is made. This is the marker print against which the second piece of the jigsaw will be aligned. The same procedure is repeated with the second plate. All the other plates are printed in sequence as shown until all of the composite sheet 1 is completed. This sheet was then developed. The 2-minute development time would enable Rejlander to control the tonal range of any group requiring more or less development in order to give a consistent range of densities throughout the montage. The process is then repeated on sheet 2, exposing the images of the groups on the right-hand side. By overlapping the two halves to make a perfect match and cutting along the predetermined line, he would now have the two pieces of the print. These could then be butt mounted onto quality card. Using his skills as an artist, he would retouch the joint carefully, matching the tonal range of the surrounding area.